You are now listening to Asking for a Friend with TalkDoc, sharing insights through real, honest, and practical ways to improve your communication and relationships. Featuring your hosts, Dr. Pamela Kreiser, Meredith Teighlor, and Taylor Polindo.
Welcome back, everyone, to our Family Survival Kit for the holidays. This is episode 4, and we are excited to talk with you about ways you can make your holidays better by improving and planning your communication. I'm Dr. Pamela Kreiser, and I do a podcast called Asking for a Friend with TalkDoc with these gals, Taylor and Meredith. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about bad behaviors. Now, we know that that's a judgmental thing to say, right? This idea that we could do a bad behavior at the holiday. But the reality is there are behaviors that people do that aren't very functional. And so the question is, how can you and I get ready to encounter these dysfunctional behaviors? What can we do in terms of preparing ourselves to survive? Now, notice I didn't say when. I said survive the holidays. So that's what we're about.
Taylor, note that.
Surviving. Lower expectations, right? So the thing that I think is so funny is how we end up trying to think that our family experiences are going to be different each year. Before we get there, we think, okay, this time it'll be different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That person that doesn't help will help. And that casserole that I never really like, I'll like. And fill in the blank, right? Whatever goes on at your house. And so today we're going to talk just about what to do in terms of preparing ourselves. And I want to start with one quiz question.
Oh, geez.
No, it's a short quiz. You can handle it, okay? So, but here's what I want you to do. I'm going to change the game a little, and that is, it's one question, all or nothing.
Oh.
One question, okay? And I want you to say the percentage that is your guess. So at the same time. So I'll say 1, 2, 3, and you're going to say your answer. Okay? What percentage of Americans celebrate Christmas? Okay, think about it. This is kind of an interesting thing.
67.
You're supposed to do
Oh.
it.
We're supposed to
We're supposed to do it at the same time.
So this is an example of a bad behavior. Okay, so we say that. Do you play games with your family where you have the rules and then people just don't do it? Right here. Here's my family.
Okay.
Okay.
All
That's all right.
right.
It's okay. It's okay.
I was excited to win.
So you both lose.
Mm-hmm.
So 89, no. What did you say?
67.
67.
Yeah, Hanukkah's a big holiday here.
No, but you can celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah. Some people do. I have relatives that do.
Oh, that's pretty low. Can I change it?
No, absolutely not. Can she change it? She wants to go check the book.
Closest
But wait,
person win?
we should do it again on 3, and we each pick a new one.
Pick a new number?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Second chance?
Yeah, second chance. Come on.
Okay, we'll adapt.
Yeah, adapting is
We're
a good
into
quality of
preparation.
communicating.
Okay, all right. Okay, you
Yeah.
ready on
Yeah.
3? 1, 2, 3.
82.
That was real.
That's why you're my best friend.
That was real.
Okay.
That was actually weird.
But are we right?
No.
Oh, dang it! That would have been so cool.
Well, I would have said cheating for sure. But yeah, so 93.
Oh, wow.
93.
So you kind of
Yeah.
were closer to the first one.
Yeah, so we're coming closer to Christmas right now, but I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know that I knew that percentage, so clearly neither of you knew that percentage because you had no idea. But yeah, that's our quiz for today. You're welcome. Yeah. So you just saw an example of bad behavior. So start to think about the bad behaviors that go on in your house, right? What goes on and what kind of preparation can you think about doing to make that go a little better from a communication standpoint? So let's start by talking about what bugs you, what bad behaviors out there.
It's funny. I feel like this can be such a playful, like, oh, this is so annoying. This person does, but some bad behaviors are like really hard on families.
Yeah,
and
true.
I've reached out to some people to hear so that I don't just talk about only my family's bad behaviors or my own bad behaviors.
Right.
And it seems like there's always someone that drinks too much, and that seems to be a pretty classic one that I've asked a few people. But I've kind of realized in talking to some people that more than just the bad behavior of the person that drinks too much is the fact that everyone else in the family collectively talks about that person.
Behind their back.
So is that also the bad behavior? Yeah, like they're it's
Yeah.
always Uncle so-and-so that drinks too much every year, you know, but then everyone is talking poorly about that person, so that's also the bad behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like supporting the dysfunction in a way.
Yeah.
We're not going to address the bad behavior, but let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
Like,
So since we're having wine and she's not, does that mean we're doing bad behavior?
That's because I did a bad behavior to get a good behavior.
What's that?
I don't think it's bad.
Birds and the bees.
Wow, this is gonna, yeah.
Congrats.
I'm pregnant.
Mazel, mazel.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
So our podcast is growing. I have no idea if that'll stay in.
Announcement ever.
Okay.
So let's actually talk about that for a second. Let's talk about this idea that we want to be playful about this topic, but if you're someone who struggles and has something going on in your family that's really serious or threatening or unsafe, we hear you and we see you, and we aren't talking about that kind of situation, but we do know it exists. The kinds of things we're talking about are for relationships that we want to keep and to kind of manage existing relationships that we want to be long-term with the family. So what's the report out there?
Okay,
I guess it doesn't have to be your family, but.
Yeah, but I'm just going to be straight. This is my family. It's the same. So interestingly, not interestingly, it's the exact same thing that I talked about a couple episodes ago.
Okay.
Happened again the other day. Like the exact same person, same scenario.
Okay.
It was a cold fall day.
Oh my God.
Raining.
Setting up.
My son and my brother were outside playing, having a great time. We come in for a hot beverage.
Okay.
He's 2, super excited. I give him tea. He's like so excited. It's the new like special treat for him. He likes to dunk the bag. It's like a exciting thing.
Yeah.
And I made my brother cocoa. Well, my brother then took little marshmallows and like put it in his, and then gave my 2-year-old one. Well, this is something I've talked about many times with them and you, that I don't give my kid sugar. So I was like, hey, like, what are you doing? Don't do that. Don't give him that. And he's like, he took it away. And then he said, you're too rigid. And I'm just going to put it right here.
Ooh.
And he puts it on my 2-year-old's tray, who is utterly confused because he's looking at me like just saw me say no, but then he picks it up and he like puts it over his cup because he just saw his uncle do that. And he looks at me again like, can I have this? And I'm like, no, babe, I'm so sorry. And some people might say like, oh, it's just a marshmallow, like let him have it.
Sure.
But ultimately, I think it's like I don't want to enforce or reinforce and allow this bad behavior of this boundary that keeps getting violated after I've asked repeatedly. And also, I was like, that's so mean to do to this little kid.
Yeah.
And so I said, tell your uncle that's rude. And he said, that's rude, uncle. Which, I don't know, maybe that's a bad behavior to teach your kid to, like, sass an adult, but...
I feel like what's mixed into that, too, is, like, the bad behavior of, like, teaching your child to disrespect your rule.
Yeah.
Which is more than just crossing a boundary between adults, but, like, hey, kid, what parent X has to say, whether it's a rule you like or not, whatever, it's your kid, then you can disrespect you.
Yeah.
And that would get really under my skin.
Yeah. And
I'm not even a mom yet. I wish I had a drink, but I'm like already thinking how not happy I would be in that instant.
Well, I think it's tough though because you're saying it's a repeated pattern too. So it's not a one-off thing.
Yeah.
And that makes it harder each time it repeats. Because it's like you're intentionally not respecting what I've said.
Also, I have to question, like, I have him take him out on like outings and it's a special thing and I'm like, can I trust you now with my kid? Because you don't do, like, in my face, you don't do what I'm asking. So how would you ever do what I'm asking in private?
Yeah.
And that was very concerning.
Interesting. So when he says, I've tasted beer, then...
Oh, God.
No, we had that actually. This is
Yeah.
a true story.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had one time we were talking with our oldest who was, I think, 7 at the time, and he had tasted beer when he was 4, when Grandpa was babysitting. And he said, I've already tasted it. When we said, do you want to taste beer? And he said, I've already tasted it. And we were like, that is totally not fine.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And Grandpa chimed in and said, it's okay, he didn't like it. And we're like, but you don't give beer. Like, what? What?
Also, other people can't dictate what's okay for you and your family.
Yeah.
Like, I get to decide what's okay and not okay.
Yeah.
So,
what about you with some examples?
Well, I think that's a huge category for sure, and I lived that with littler kids where they start to maybe have a situation where someone parents, even while you're in the room, like, hey, don't do that. And you're like, wait, I'm here, like I can parent, I don't need you to do that.
Yeah.
For me, it's gonna come down to communication for sure. And I have adult children, so they would tell you they encounter what I encountered when I was an adult at holidays. Why are you still single? What are you going to do with the rest of your life? Why haven't you graduated yet? Right? These different, there are all these expectations that, why aren't you dating? Why, fill in the blank, sort of this, why aren't you filling the expected benchmarks that should happen for someone who's 24?
Should.
Or whatever. Yeah, no, should is the word there for sure.
Yeah. Can I do another example that makes me think of that?
Yeah.
I was talking to this friend of mine, and she's actually just crossed that barrier of, it was actually my little sister's friend. She's crossed this barrier of college, so like graduated and like getting into other career ventures or whatnot, right? And she let me know that usually at holidays, she let me know that two specific topics seem to come up, and it's religion and politics, that like an aunt or uncle or somebody will say like their opinion to them or about like, and then kind of ask them, well, what do you think? And then she seems like because she's gone off to college, she's learned some things, and she has a little difference of opinion on those subjects. And so she'll share, thinking she's being respectful and having an open dialogue with her aunt or uncle. And typically it's this very like know-it-all behavior, which is like, well, when you get older, you'll change your mind. Like, which is like, well, so I feel like that bad behavior would be the know-it-all person that thinks like, well, just because you're in this stage in life, even though I asked you your opinion, I didn't really care anyway unless it matched mine.
Yeah. Ouch.
That's that kind of like is that kind of like a younger like adult like discovering themselves, but also knowing like, well, this is where I'm at and this is who I am right now. That doesn't mean I can't change my mind later down the road, but who are you to say that this isn't important right now?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting you say that, because so when I teach my college students, one of the things that they report back in my conflict class that I teach is they talk about being sort of stuck at the children's table. So it's sort of like there's a dismissive part to your story a little bit, like one day you'll see it how we see it. You haven't really gotten off the children's table. And my students will say, hey, I'm 23 or I'm 25, I work full time, like what the heck? What's happened? I pay for my own college, many of them. And they'll say, how is that, like that I don't have a spot at the adult table, I'm still in like a small chair with the 4-year-olds, like what happened? Literally at the children's table.
Oh, dang.
And that's kind of an interesting thing when you have some family behaviors where they say like, unless you're married or unless you have a partner or whatever, that gives you status.
Then
like
your opinion's not valid.
Yeah, it's like you have to.
It's a status thing.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
No, it's interesting because I hear that story of your friend and I think, why is her opinion not allowed like to be an equal opinion to somebody else's?
Or why even bother asking if you really just want them to match you?
Yeah. And what's interesting is that's our next episode, to talk about managing difference at the holiday. So we're going to talk about that, which will get us into what do you do about that. So if you haven't checked out our series, this is episode 4, and we've done 4 that we'd love for you to check out. This is the 4th, and then the 5th one coming up is about difference, and then we'll get into new beginnings. So definitely check that out. You can check out the podcast audio version on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, all the big platforms, and then you can also, of course, check us out here on YouTube. So now we have to talk about what to do.
Oh yeah, this is always the rough part.
Yeah.
Instead
what
of
do you
just
do about
like
these bad behaviors, right?
noting them, figuring out like how you respond to them. So what kind of things rise for you?
One, I have a tip. I have a tip that has helped me through surviving many awkward situations. Many. In college, my roommate and I came up with code words or a phrase to get you out of sticky situations. And ours, you want it to be subtle, something that can flow into conversation. Mine was, let's get the fuck out of here.
That was your code word?
No. She's full of shit right now. I was like,
I
bad
don't
tip.
remember that.
Bad tip.
But my friend who did use her code word, she had a phrase with her mom, and she said, when you're little, you don't want to spend the night at your friend's house. Sometimes it's awkward to tell them that. So she had this phrase, Mom, if I don't want to stay, I'm going to tell you, are the cats okay? Are the cats okay? That means come pick me up. We're out. So she's like, Mom, are the cats okay? And I'm like, yeah, honey, they're great. Have fun. And just like totally.
Oh, so she like didn't know.
Oh, forgot it. Whoever you're setting up your code phrase with, make sure they know what it is and remember it, because.
Okay, so the code phrase is something that sounds normal enough to be embedded in regular talk.
Yeah.
But gets you out of a situation.
Like,
okay. So like right now, if Meredith and I have to get away from you, I say, what do you think, Meredith? And
actually what I think is I need to go check something.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, whatever your phrase is, but it's your exit strategy. I think it's a good one at the topic of, like if there's a topic that comes up at the dinner table and you're like, oh, and you hooked up with your favorite aunt or cousin, your friend, whoever you brought to the...
Right, with the code word.
Yeah, with the code word, and you're like, oh, when I say this, you need to change the subject, or we need to go get some ice, or let's go check our phone, or whatever it is. Like, you can use it as an exit strategy, or like, let's just change the environment.
So if I yell Spider-Man, that seems not a good code word, right?
No. Bad example.
It needs to be, and I can't have something that's too like Thanksgiving, because you could accidentally say it, like at Thanksgiving. Or Christmas, right? Would be
no, my real one was, what time is it?
What time is it?
Meredith, what time is it?
Oh,
that's like a leaving the party.
Yeah, I don't know that that one's subtle either, though.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
Okay.
It makes me think about one episode we talked about was taboo topics, which kind of just thinks about that story, which was things like religion and whatnot. So to touch base on that, if you're like someone that knows, oh, I have a difference of opinion with my family, then that can maybe help. But also, it was, which I always love, I go back to Jason Harper's managing conflict, because a lot of these bad behaviors are conflicting with like some of our core nests or whatever that is, right? And he always talked about those, just how you listen, right? Like, what are you listening for? And actually just made me think of it with that tip that you said. I actually had a therapist tell me once, if someone asked a really invasive question, like why aren't you dating yet? Or all of those things. Or a big one for me was even just people asking me before I was pregnant, like when I wanted to have kids or all that stuff. It's like, well, what if that's something I don't want? Or what if that's something I'm not capable of doing? Or what if I've been trying for a long time and that was a really hurtful question? And my therapist always used to say, to respond back, saying, well, why do you ask?
Oh.
and
because
to like
you're
kind
a narrow-minded person?
And to kind of have the person like think, well, why am I asking? Because I think sometimes people just do that at holidays, especially like just word vomit.
When
like,
are you gonna have kids, Meredith?
Yeah, and you're just like, well, why do you ask? You know, you don't have to do it. It's always going back to a lot of things we've talked about, which is doing it in a way that's as neutral as possible, right?
For sure.
Because I think I could definitely do it in a way that's like, well, why do you ask?
What's your problem?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So one of the strategies that I give my college students, one of the things they'll tell me is if they don't have something lined up perfect after graduation, they tell me they don't want to go to their parties with the family. They don't mind friends. Yeah. Friends are fine. But the family is, they're going to all be there. They're going to ask me what I'm doing, and I won't have an answer, and I don't want to do that 25 times.
Yeah.
So what I have trained them to kind of think as a strategy is to say, reframe it into, oh, so what are my next steps?
Right.
So take their question and change the question and answer the question that you just edited it to be.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, I like that. So, like, what would be another example of that? Like, if you're looking for a career, or if you're someone's trying to, what about you? What if it's a political thing?
Well,
can you not do that? You can't do that. I mean, difference of opinion.
Probably pretty tough there.
Yeah, it's probably a rough one.
But
so are you just, instead of like saying like, this is my life plan because I know everything and I figured everything out, you're just saying, well, my next step is to get through the summer.
Yeah. Or I'm applying to medical school.
Yeah, or like you just say like one little thing and it gives them like the taste of like your plan is what they're probably wanting to know is like what you're doing in life.
Yeah.
And not that you have everything figured out or you have this whole map, but you're just like, my next step is to take the summer off and do nothing.
Well, that one doesn't go over as well. They take the gift card back.
Yeah.
No, but the thing that I think...
That's what I did.
What did you say?
I took the summer off, did nothing,
and
then traveled.
Yeah.
For like a year.
That's not real.
So learning how to reframe those questions, your guidance with people is to learn how to reframe the question so that it's not as maybe personal or like invasive if you're not sure about sharing all those things. It's like redirecting basically. If you get it, it's like the art of redirection.
Well, that and just think about like if you aren't dating and don't want to be dating, and you know that aunt's always going to ask you about that. Yeah. Be ready.
Yeah,
to reframe it into a different question.
Begin with planning and being ready.
So are you asking? Oh, I'm very social, and are you asking about am I socializing and during the pandemic or whatever? Yeah, I am. And answer the question that you've changed it to be.
Mm-hmm. That makes me think about boundaries, and we did the series on it, which is my favorite. You should definitely check it out. But how to manage difficult people, and it's the people who are like continuously abusing your boundary.
Resistors, right? Yeah.
The resistors. I call them that.
But that you have a plan, that it's a kindness you're giving to them, one, it's not me. And you have a plan of a neutral response, because let's just expect people to violate your boundary. Like if they don't and they listen the first time, awesome for them.
Keep those people.
Yeah, but if they're like the rest of us, maybe need some reminders. So you plan ahead your neutral response, because in the moment, I think you're just like, why do they always do this? And you kind of like freak out. But I also thought it goes back to fractioning that you talked about a couple episodes ago. And instead of flying off the handle and saying, you've done this like 100 times, or reminding them of the 10 times they violated your boundary, let's just keep it on in this time, this is how you're violating it, and like addressing it, you want to like make it smaller, right? Make it smaller and use neutral words or phrasing. And you planned it ahead so that you're not responding out of the anger of being violated again. And it's like, well, we've already prepared. We're expecting you to violate it, and we've prepared our answer.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right?
Dealing with one little nugget at a time.
One little marshmallow, actually.
One little marshmallow at a time.
And I got to maintain that one.
That's a good analogy for you.
No, I mean, but that's an interesting case and a decision you have to make, right? Of this idea, do you focus on the one marshmallow that's at hand, or do we talk about the 25 marshmallows that you've maybe handed out?
Well, and I'm going to use my code word with my partner, and like, you're going to manage this boundary this time, because I can't have this fight again. And I'm going to use my code word
I like
there.
that.
That's
I like
a good
the code
idea.
word.
You're going to help me out.
Don't give that code word away here. That's between you two.
Yeah, I think that's good. I have one other strategy I was thinking about from our textbook that we use for one of my classes. It's called the XYZ message. That you put together, and because you didn't study.
I say like, I
was like, you didn't read that book?
Yeah, on a book that they don't read, but that's fine. So XYZ, so when X happens, I feel Y, and what I need is Z. Okay, so you have the intent, the context, the behavior, the feeling, and the intention attached there. So what am I doing? I'm saying when you put the marshmallow on the tray, I feel betrayed.
Okay.
And what I need you to do is to follow our dietary restrictions or guidelines that we have for our children.
Okay.
Instead of, that's another avenue you could try.
Instead of putting all this meaning on like, you don't respect me, you don't love me, you don't, like you put intention on what they're, but instead you're just addressing what I need, what happened.
So I tell you about the behavior, I tell you the feeling that I have in this moment, and then what I need from you. What I need from you. And one of the reasons I use this as a tool, or talk about this as a tool, is I think too often we assume family knows what we need, and then they think they understand our needs better than we do, which is impossible. Right?
Like, this is what you know.
Oh, I know what you need. Your kids need to not wear shoes or whatever. And it's like, no, I actually don't need you to tell me that. But if people don't know how to treat you, you might have to educate them on how to treat you. And that's kind of an interesting thing to kind of think about in terms of the holidays and say, are you helping people understand what you need? Because if you just go around assuming they know, I don't know that they know.
That made me think of, like, in that series of boundaries, maybe you haven't set up a ton of boundaries in advance, so you're going into these holidays and you're like, can't maintain a boundary I haven't set. But you said to pay attention to what, like, the turbulence in your relationship and what you are getting upset by. That is an indicator that it's important to you. So if there's something you're like, wow, I really, like, we always have this discussion, or I'm always having this conversation, or this behavior really bothers me, then pay attention to that, because that is signaling to you, it's important to me, and I might need a boundary around that if it's something that kind of repetitive.
And so collecting the data, right?
There you go again.
And doing the planning. I mean, it just writes itself, doesn't it?
It's true, though. I mean, so much of this is like, if we don't get ready beforehand. And I remember in the episode you were talking about too, a big thing for me was, if anyone is similar to me, that when you're in a position or around all these family or differences of opinion or people with bad behaviors, you tend to react poorly versus if you prepare for it. Like, if I know, okay, this aunt is going to ask me this, or this subject's going to come up with this person, and you pick your battles, right? A lot of this seems to be pick your battles. Some bad behaviors, I think we need to call them out, you know? But you select those, like, okay, there's going to be these, and I'm going to pick my battle here and know how to operate that stressor for me. I guess that's kind of...
Yeah, because you can't really do it in the moment.
Yeah,
it would
not
be,
well.
Yeah, And if we can't communicate well,
we don't want to do it. I'm thinking about this too, just regarding how you and I think about people, like if we think people are rational, and or if you and I expect people to plan. So we're talking about intentionally planning, right? Yeah. But we're almost sounding or expecting, if we do no work, like that people know what they're doing. Does the aunt just ask you if you're still single because they don't know what to ask you? Maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Like we can look at it and go, she's so mean, she's so self-centered, she's shooting all over me and trying to make me feel bad. But the reality is, at a grad party, people ask you what you're going to do next because it seems like something you should say at a grad party. Yeah. And have they really thought about it? Not really. That's what I'd say. Yeah. Let's not give people too much credit, but let's take that credit away and give them what we need. Mm-hmm. Good point. And land on that saying, I need this, and I need you to know and understand that maybe they didn't know.
That's a lot.
Even though they've known you for 40 years, 41 years, right?
We're not that old.
Yes. Just throwing that number out there. It's just a favorite number today.
Yeah, I like that. Now I'm thinking about getting ready because we're just about to go to Christmas. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I'm like, okay. And also checking my own bad behavior too, because I think reacting poorly can be my bad behavior. Yeah. So if I don't prepare for some of those like interactions, I can be a little, I think, spicy or whatever you want to call it, because I don't like so-and-so asking questions like that, and instead of just like, it gives me more peace of mind, more peace for my Christmas to just like be ready for it and
think even internally, I've been expecting this. I should not be shocked at this.
Right. And what you talked about in the stories we make up is that we're really missing a lot of information. So ask like 2 more questions than you feel comfortable. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Because we go in with this intention, or we assume intention on people. Sure. And then we also like minimize what we're saying. We kind of shorten our message. So it's like we're already missing information, and then we also shorten what we're saying. And so there's this huge gap.
Gaps everywhere.
So ask more questions. Don't assume.
I think so.
Meredith.
Yeah. I think so. I know which means she's saying collect the data. Yeah, I think so.
Full circle, yeah.
Full circle indeed.
I know. Good luck in your holidays.
Wow, I'm more hopeful than that. I don't want to just say throw the dice. I would rather say I hope that you're thinking intentionally about how to take steps for improvement. We're not going to solve anything. We're not going to change people, but we can, I think, change the communication.
For sure. Yeah. Go team again. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Don't cheers with water, people.
Once again, thank you for joining us today. Please remember to rate, share, and subscribe to our podcast. And thank you for listening to Asking for a Friend.
Let us know what you thought of the episode. Our email is hello@afafpodcast.com. This show is for educational purposes only and is copyrighted. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. Thanks for listening to Asking